Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology and to Astro-Inklings with Tam. We're combining our podcasts this morning. Actually, we're combining our wisdoms this morning. And she's got an energy almanac cup. I love it.
Not cool.
I just have my Gemini cup, which is half full at this point. I've already been sipping on it
Your
this
cup is
morning.
half full. I'm so sad to hear you're there.
My cup is boiling over, not boiling over. It's full. Oh, anyway, let's forget with that. We have a lot to talk about today. Interestingly enough, um, if as we look back over November, it was a quite the crazy month, up and down. At least in my own perspective, there was so much going on that I felt like it wasn't represented correctly in the astrology. I mean, I felt like, I should be seeing way more stuff, on the chart, but it was the culmination of a bunch of different things that were going on in November. As we get into December, we start out the month with a new moon.
Right out the gate, right?
Right out of the gate. Actually, for us on the West Coast, actually Central, Mountain, and Pacific time, it's all on. Actually, it's Mountain and Pacific time. It's on the 30th, and for everybody else over to the east, it is on December 1st. Either
Mhm.
way you look at it, we start out right away with the potential for new intentions and for, newness and that Sagittarian energy to take the lead for the month, which to me feels sort of good.
New
Optimism, right?
adventures, right? New adventures, new and higher thinking, optimism and hope. The all things Sagittarius, I'm all about it. I think it's great.
Yes, and I don't remember if you and I've had this discussion yet, but I have been in this process, since I came out of the depression after the election, and decided I wasn't an astrologer anymore, and I was leaving the country and moving to Canada. Uh,
As I was celebrating the news.
yeah, you're celebrating, and I'm like, "Fuck, I'm out of here." Um, but anyway, as I was going through that whole process, I had this aha moment. So, with the election was Tuesday, my husband had surgery on Wednesday, so I hadn't even thought about it. And then after that, I went through my depression. Sunday, I decided that I needed to reimagine the zodiac. I don't know, some mad idea, and I've already written most of a book about it. And Sagittarian energy is one of the things that I am in the code of Sagittarius. It's extremely masculine. It's meant to be a masculine sign, and it's ruled by a planet that has very masculine characteristics. And yet, I found a way to bring it into balance and harmony with the divine feminine. So when we start to talk about Sagittarius today and this new moon, for all of you who've been listening to me over the last couple of weeks, remember that we have a balance act that we're also bringing to this picture of all of these signs. We're elevating the divine feminine because I'm sick and tired of her being trodden on and dumped upon and underrepresented. If you look at all the mythologies, she is totally underrepresented. So when we talk about the new moon, it's a possibility that we could really create from a new point of view, right? A new intention. So when we're thinking about the Sagittarius new moon, the first thing that comes to mind for me is expansion and vision.
Right. Absolutely.
Yes, like seeing from the higher perspective, maybe
Yep.
setting intentions, that elevate our thinking, broadening our perspective, so to speak. And then I think about truth and freedom. It's another
Yeah.
quality of the Sagittarian sign.
You have to.
And yeah, you can't separate,
Right.
those things out. And this lunation or this new moon really shines a light on authenticity and helping us to align with our personal truth and to break free from all the limiting beliefs and the limiting patterns that
Yeah.
that we have been sort of caught up in. So it can also be a powerful time to reflect on, well, what does freedom mean to me? And how
Agree.
can I cultivate more of it in my life?
Yeah.
How do I do that?
I when I think about Sag, I think about the routine, the kind of like a lot of times Sag seems to, for some reason, and I don't understand why, they seem to be tethered to the past. They lean a lot on what they remember. And I would love to see the use of the new moon in Sagittarian as an opportunity to break free. What is holding me from my next best adventure? What is holding me from,
Yeah.
right? Being my
Yeah.
greatest self. Yeah.
Yeah, because the dose of adventure is what's here, right?
Mhm.
It's this, dare I, because it's fire. So it
Right.
has this passion, it has boldness in it, even though it's not, as bold, let's say, as Aries. But it's also, pointed in a direction out there somewhere.
Right
So
there.
finding and scooping up, if you will, the wisdom that is to be had. And of course, that looks different to different people. Not
Mhm.
everybody is going to be on the same path or come up with the same inspiration or be, even as excited about the same things. So, um, I think the best way I think what you're trying to say, or maybe how we should, relook at this is through the lens of possibility. What
Mm,
more is possible,
right.
right? If we let go of all of our preconceived ideas and notions of what should be or
Mm,
how it should look,
right.
then we could be free of that and be free to create.
I so
So yeah, it's and then there are of course aspects in this new moon that we'll kind of want to break down really quickly, but I have a couple of new moon ideas, new moon intention ideas. Do you want to hear them?
yeah, let it rip.
Okay, so first one, maybe about growth and learning. What new skills or knowledge or experiences can help you grow
Mhm.
and help you expand? And another one would be about truth and authenticity. And how can you align more fully with your personal truth and set an intention about, aligning with that? And then, of course, adventure and exploration. That's the part I always like about it. What risks are you ready to take to expand your horizons?
Ooh, that one feels really juicy. I like that.
Yeah. And then think about that and turn it into an intention. Like, I want to expand my fill in the blank, my business, my
Mm,
health, and make, my learning about a certain subject, whatever it is. All right.
good job.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm making notes.
Oh,
Uh,
good idea.
yeah,
So
everybody should be.
literally the new moon is offering us up a sort of portal to new beginnings, and I have a feeling I need to excuse myself for a second.
Oh,
So I'll be right back.
yep. Go ahead.
All right.
I am prepared for this moment in time. Being that we're in a great Mercury retrograde, Janet went and scheduled herself to have her internet and television repaired. So she's answering the door. The new moon in Sag, I think, again, like being that I'm a Sag rising, I always feel the energy around the Sagittarian topics, and again, would have certainly encourage you to be thinking about what needs to expand for you. And it can be your sense of risk taking, it can be your sense of adventure, and it can be, and most especially, your thinking. What is in the way of you? How do I say this? Changing your beliefs. What belief is in the way that you need to address in order to move forward? Put your best foot forward, and you do that through a series of questions that can identify that for you. That's a whole other topic that we won't go into right now, right? um, okay, the next thing that we're going to talk about, I got to get my book out. I'm looking at the 2024 Energy Almanac. I want to talk about the reason that Janet isn't currently sitting here at the moment, and that is Mercury in retrograde again in that sign of Sagittarius. So we know that this is the last one for 2024. Yay. But it's going to last through mid-September. I have it going through the 14th of December. I think I just said September. But we're actually, hey, you're back already. I just began to talk about Mercury retrograde in Sagittarius.
During this new moon window.
Yeah, exactly. In this new moon window, and how how to go in to begin the reflection process rather than like, Mercury, the lower mind, Sag, Jupiter, more the higher mind, and like bringing stuff internally. Again, around the same topics that we were just talking about with the moon. We're
Yeah.
we're talking about adventure. We're talking about risk taking, belief systems, truth telling. And so that's where I was started to head.
And getting to the heart of something, like what, which to me always makes me think about, your soul, your what really makes you tick. And that's a big opportunity during a new moon anyway, is to get realigned with your own truth, no matter what sign it's in. It
Mhm.
just so happens that this one is good at helping us get to the heart of who we are and who we want to be, what we want to do, all of that.
Yeah, I love the belief work that is involved with Sagittarians. What do you believe? And if you're not asking yourself that question regularly, like if you're finding yourself super stuck, like what is it that I believe that's in my way? If you believe that you can't succeed, you won't. If you believe that you can't lose weight, you won't. If you believe your mother-in-law has always hated you, then that's what you'll get. Like what you believe matters. I think these Sagittarian topics and questions and this time frame of the new moon and the Mercury retrograde is the perfect time. What belief is holding you back from your best self?
Absolutely. And, this new moon is also squaring Saturn in Pisces,
Yeah.
which has also been really helping us, kind of push up against our borders or our boundaries and see, you know, where it is that we've limited ourselves maybe and what can we bust through. Or on the other hand, it could be where have I just been all over the place and I need to bring in some boundaries that can help support my next steps. And yet, it isn't necessarily time to take the action yet.
Right.
You got to slow it down a little, but
Don't take that
certainly,
job yet.
right? Play the imagination card and, reinvent and, be willing to evaluate, where you are and what you're doing. This new moon is also trine Mars,
Mhm.
which means that we're also going to be bumping up against this, need that we have to act and
Mhm.
to take those steps. So on one hand, we're going to have foot on the gas, foot on the brake,
I would
and
say the Mars energy in November, and probably as we continue with the retrograde that's coming for
mm,
Mars. Wow.
mm.
The expression, and I'm gonna use the air quotes, expression has been loud. The roar has been real. And, I don't know about in your life, but I definitely in my circle.
I've just noticed a lot of creative energy flowing, and so much so that it's hard for me to channel it in a direction. So, and knowing that I'm in a retrograde and knowing that I need to, maybe slow the roll.
Tamp it.
Um, it's just an interesting time, right,
It
for all
is.
of this. It is a time for courageous action, but internally.
Mm, mm.
Like what do you have to shift out of your way in
Yeah.
order to be the fullest expression of who you are?
Oddly enough, I've also noticed, and I'd love to hear from the audience who's listening, like, I've noticed an interest, or maybe I'm being pushed, I don't know, for healing, like personal healing. Like I I went to a healer. I laid on the table and I did the work and I had the cry and I broke through. I broke through, and like if you I wonder if other people are feeling that. I don't know if that's the Saturn Pisces thing. I don't know. I don't know, but I like it's the urge is so strong in me right now.
Well, I mean, Chiron is also in the mix and
Mm,
has been, playing this role with, getting us to really claim our true selves. And you can't claim your true self if you've got a bunch of junk in the way. And Chiron is the junk, right? The wounds, the core wounds that you're experiencing. And, the real opportunity comes when we can remove those. Or, I don't know that we ever can remove them and like get rid of them. They're always there,
mhm.
but we can work with them and, work in the healing process of those wounds.
Absolutely.
So,
A couple people agree with me. Yay.
yeah,
Bill and
yeah,
Nico.
good.
Yeah,
Ah,
that's
great. Now, the first week of December is the big one, right?
yeah.
And I don't know that you have this in your calendar because some of this is human design stuff. But in human design on the 4th, so this next Wednesday, the nodes shift, the north and the south node. In human design, they shift gates about every 2 months or so. And they're still in Aries energy, or the north node will still be in Aries energy, but the focus of that Aries energy shifts somewhat. And by the way, if you happen to see a guy walk behind me, it'll be my internet guy working on my system. He told me I could still talk. um, and the nodes are shifting to such an interesting grouping of planets, and this is going to impact you almost directly, because I believe it's going to affect you directly because the nodes are shifting to the gates 25 and 46. And the gate 25 is the gate of the love of spirit. And I'm trying to remember, were you born on the incarnation cross of the vessel of love? Is that you?
Should I know that? I don't know.
Well, irregardless, we're moving to the gates of love,
Okay.
right? For our destiny and for our karma. And the gate 46 is the love of the physical body. So what we're having to square with is the fact that we are embodied spirits.
Mm,
And for the from let's see, I have it from December 4th to January 30th is when the nodes will be at this. So the north node in the gate 25 is often called the gate of spirit, and it is emphasizing universal love. It is emphasizing purity and connection to the divine.
mm,
This is the direction we're moving. And it guides us to align with higher principles, to ask the higher questions. Is this in integrity?
mm,
Is this part of love? Is
right.
this the most loving thing I could do, or the most loving person I could be? Those kinds of things. It reminds us of the sacredness
Mm,
of connection and of being in alignment with principles around love. And that's
beautiful.
really it's highlighting healing, forgiveness, and surrender to the flow of life and what have you. And also collectively, we're going to be kind of drawn to explore more about what it means to act from a place of unconditional love, which
Mm.
means releasing the ego driven motives and embracing compassion, embracing unity, and things like that. Now, do I think that's going to be a big theme that we will see in the outer world? I don't know. I think it has to start with the individual, with
Well,
you
yeah,
as a person.
but Janet, you have to think that if Tam is listening to this podcast, and Nico and Bill and everybody on this podcast is listening, and they're like, oh, okay, so now I know that I can go higher level, I can connect to the divine. I mean, the more of us that heal it, it has to be outer world as much as, even though it starts with one, it spreads quickly.
Right. It has to start with you.
It
It
has
has to
to.
start from
No, it
within
has
and
to.
then, yeah, moves out. So, but I did take a look at what would the impact be on these gates being activated on our soul's evolution. So that's I wanted to look at it from that point of view. And because it emphasizes that universal love energy and the connection of human beings and so forth, it really it ups the ante, if you will, for us to really deal with healing and forgiveness and letting go of the old conversation that's going on in our heads and so forth like that. Balancing in this case, because the south node is in the physical, in the gate of the physical embodiment, and this gate it's the gate 46, and it really speaks to being fully present in your physical experience. So what we might also call being grounded, right? Being
Mhm,
in the body. And
mhm,
the south node is encouraging us then to release outdated beliefs, outdated patterns, to use the gifts of your soul, the gifts of your spirit, in a universally loving, unconditionally loving, purer sense of spirit.
mm.
So it's just going to be an interesting several weeks,
I was
almost two
going to ask
months.
you, what's the length of time of this?
December 4th to January 30th. So almost 2 months.
Perfect.
Um, we'll be asked to let go of judgment.
Interesting that that's happening during the time of the transfer of power and the administration's changing for in the United States. I think that's really interesting and could be extremely beneficial, because I know, of course, it's a crazy time politically, and maybe this can have a strong influence on how that happens.
Definitely it could, you know, it sometimes these energies penetrate hearts and minds in the most unexpected ways and in the most unexpected persons.
Sure.
So be on the lookout, right? But, you know, the only person you can really, um, you know, do
Control.
anything about it is you, right? That it
Yeah.
has to come from within you.
Let's look for this activating in everybody. Like I'm tasking everybody who's watching. Let's look for the good in people through this transit. I think it's really fascinating.
It's a fascinating one. There's also focusing energy on living authentically, right? That's another key of this particular transit. Focusing on health and embodiment because of the physical nature of the gate 46, right? What do you have to do to be fully engaged, to be fully healthy in order to live through the higher end of the spirit? It has a lot to do with environmental and earth-centered movements.
Mm,
This is a gate combo that honors Earth as her own sacred spirit.
mm,
And how we treat her is often a reflection of how we treat ourselves,
mm,
which might sometimes reflect a lack of sacredness in the planet and in ourselves, or could, you know, be the exact opposite, which embodies the highest nature of love of self and body and nature. And of course, there could also be resistance to change. We could get so caught in that south node that we, you know, need to actually push ourselves toward the north node. But I'm excited for this one. I've been looking forward to the
good.
nodes shifting into these gates because they do bring such a higher power to the forefront,
Mm,
for everyone. It's there for everyone.
right.
Um, and the opportunity then is to make the most of it,
Yeah.
right? Make the most of it.
Lean in.
Yeah. Then the very next day, Uranus changes gates. And this one will be from December 5th until March 25th. And, you know, he's still in Taurus, but he's just in a different facet of Taurus
Hmm.
for the future here. And the gate 23 is sitting on the throat center in your human design. It is a gate called assimilation. And you're going to love this, Tam. It's also called the gate of simplicity or
Ooh,
simplifying. It
yes.
is, it's like this profound energy of taking something big and wide and maybe hefty and trimming it down to or distilling it into its most important parts.
Mm,
And Uranus, of course, is a planet of disruption,
sure
of
is.
insight and unexpectedness.
Hmm.
So sudden change. So
Mm,
it could be really interesting how we maybe are shattering old paradigms,
right.
right? Under this, it disrupts. He disrupts anyway the more traditional way of thinking and encourages the dissolution of outdated systems or thought patterns or
Mm.
ways of behavior and all of that, right? For the individual and the collective.
So
So
does this like does how do I ask this question? Will old systems? I instantly thought of the economy, Uranus, Taurus. Could this be something like that?
it can be. It can be. I
Mm,
don't know because I think Uranus's end game doesn't often appear until the very end of the transit.
yeah,
That's at which point we see what the revolution and rebellious energy has been leading us to.
sure.
So definitely, yes. In some ways, there could be some bombshell things about the economy or about banking or about mortgages and interest rates and cryptocurrencies have been Bitcoin
Wow,
shot way up to almost to 100,000.
I know.
I was
Yikes.
like rolling in the dough and then now it's back down and I'm like, I should have sold it then, but I didn't. I just hanging on. But the whole idea of shattering old paradigms, like what does that mean for us? And it looks a lot like challenging authority systems and what has been happening here in the US, right? It's all about that. But
Right.
then it's replacing it. It's meant to be replaced with fresh new perspectives. I'm not sure we're at that point yet.
Mm,
Um, and there's also this whole authoritarian piece that's coming up that we have to square with at some point in time. And that's not just here, that's like around the world. This is a bigger energy that is playing out.
Okay.
So, because it highlights power, our personal power,
Mhm.
right? Your personal power based on your self worth. And Uranus is striving to bring some kind of clarity to these big ideas,
Mm.
right? Of why we've got certain systems in place or why we do things the way we do. Um,
Is this the whole piece you said this is about the gate of simplicity? Um,
Correct.
okay.
So we're paring it down.
Bringing it
We're
down,
we're
yeah.
we're bringing it to it's what in math was that the least common denominator,
Yes.
right?
Yep.
So what's the least common denominator and, distilling the meaning from it. What's
Mm.
the, I agree in, let's say, in governance, it's gotten so unwieldy, right? So
Mm.
how do we trim that?
Right,
I see that as one of the things that's happening in this country. I bet it happens if what happens here ends up happening around the world.
right.
And I think there is a better way,
Yeah.
right, to do that. I don't know what it is. I know that we can't just put new characters into play and not change the structure. So that means there will be a lot of like jockeying
Interesting.
around.
Think about this. It just remembered, like,
Mhm.
supposedly the new administration is creating the Department of Government Efficiency, and the whole thing, that whole department's goal is an 18-month job, and they're gonna trim government entities that are too fat. Is that sort of well timed?
It's exactly well timed.
Right?
Uranus has already been in this gate once. Right, because he, is in retrograde still, so moving backwards to a gate that he already dipped his toe in earlier.
Right.
So, it kind of you can think of Uranus as setting the mood
Mhm.
for what was necessary, and then now that he's gonna be in here for a little bit longer period of time, that maybe we start to see the hints of a new structure or a new, system in place that can be more simplified. That's the whole name of this game with Uranus in this next few, months is gonna be about trimming,
Yep.
trimming the fat, if you will.
That.
I
Yep.
don't know that this is good or bad, right? Because we are the creators of this, so we have to, see how all of this is gonna play out. So the highest expression of Uranus in this gate will be, simplicity and clarity, like getting some clarity about, what needs to change. Radical innovation. We cannot just reinvent a new system to replace the old system. We have to have something new.
Radical.
And then in in doing this, then we also have the potential for harmonized action, for, getting on board and, you know, hopefully with people that are willing to hear what it is, that some good ideas about what is going on, whether that's bigger government, whether it's your community, your family, things like that. It's kind of coming together.
Right.
In the low expression, which we must explore, there's fragmentation,
Mm.
right? There is absolute chaos, a difficulty in being able to articulate those new ideas effectively. And that results in disconnection or alienation or the inability to make the change, right?
Mhm.
To do anything. There's over intellectualization. We can get too caught up in our thinking
Mm.
without taking action, appropriate action in the appropriate time. And then we might also be bumping up against fear, the resistance to change.
Mhm.
So all of these things can make it a really interesting time for us while Uranus is in the gate 23, particularly if you're, looking in the outer world because he is a collective planet.
Right.
So he's really impacting the bigger picture. So there we go. Fun
Woo!
stuff.
That's
Yeah.
cool. That's all
Now,
just week 1.
that's all. That's the 4th and the 5th, and now the 6th, we have 2 big deals going on,
Yes, we do.
and that first one is Mars retrograde,
Yep.
and he'll be retrograde from December 6th until February 23rd,
Mhm.
moving from 6 degrees of Leo back to 17 degrees of Cancer.
Mm.
So he's, merging 2 different energies during this period of time.
Yep.
And he will begin this retrograde in such a fascinating place. He begins it in the gate 31 of your human design, which is called the gate of the leader.
Ooh.
And the gate in traditional astrology or traditional human design, this was the gate of democratic leadership.
Mm.
So the high potential here with Mars retrograde is a reset, if you will, um, because Mars retrograde is like a Mercury retrograde. We don't get that
Okay.
forward momentum. We have this internal change going
Right.
on. And I think it brings us this opportunity to reevaluate how we lead and
Sure.
how we express our creativity, especially with the Leo part of it. And then how do we handle emotional undercurrents once he gets over to Cancer?
Hmm.
Yeah. So, in rethinking leadership, Leo's energy is bold, of course. It's a fire
Right.
sign. It's very self expressive,
Yep.
it's drama,
Mhm.
right? There's this
Mhm.
dramatic flair. I have a lot of planets in Leo. I fall prey to the drama. But during a Mars retrograde, there's this pause. And it's a time for us to examine, what it is, whether in the terms of leadership, whether leadership stems from authentic confidence or ego driven motives.
Mm. Mm.
Big theme here because you know how leaders can get, right? What is that? Power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely.
Mhm.
And these are the things we're going to be grappling with and around the world in terms of Mars in retrograde.
Well,
And
I would bring it a little closer to home and say talk about what you mentioned earlier, which is that it all starts with us individually.
Mhm.
And if you're thinking, well, I'm not a leader, so this doesn't pertain to me, think again, because you are a leader in your personal community, whether you're in a
Absolutely.
relationship, whether your
Absolutely.
family, your coworkers, you are a leader. This does pertain to you. So, are you acting authentically? Are you, looking at your creativity? All of it, the leadership piece, how you express yourself, your level of passion. Is it authentic passion? Is it inauthentic? Are you pretending so that you can get more spotlight? Like, think about it. How does this apply to you?
And are you acting from a place of personal gain or for the
Right,
greater good? And
right,
that's the bigger picture of leadership, right? A leader isn't someone who grabs authoritarian power and says, You shall do it my way."
right.
A leader says, okay, let's take a look at all of our options and let's see how it is that we can create together. And it accepts the input from others. Although there's always someone that has to be the final, um,
Final say.
decision maker kind
Yeah,
of thing. Yeah.
yeah.
So it is a testament to our times that these are all kind of building on one another right now.
Mhm.
And it'll be interesting to see how it all plays out.
For sure.
Um, but retrograde Mars also can help us find creative blockages, like where's that writer's block hitting you,
Mhm.
or where's that artistic block hitting you, and help you to reimagine and redirect that energy so that when Mars does turn back to forward motion, you have already have had the opportunity to clear out some of those blocks and things that have been stopping you.
We have to take a pause for a second, and people will appreciate this. Janet and I are getting ready to write the 2026 Energy Almanac. Fingers crossed that the Mars retrograde in Leo doesn't bring us a writer's block, bring us, I hope it doesn't slow our process. We do the bulk of our writing January and February. This could be really interesting to see what happens.
Yeah, underlying all of that, Tam, though, life goes on, and we
Oh,
still have to move
totally,
forward. And I
totally
think for us, for lots of people out there who have projects in the works while Mars is retrograde, you just have to be able to go with the flow. And where you're blocked, it just means, okay, this is not what I work on right now.
yeah.
So, maybe I switch over to something else, and wherever the path of least resistance is where I will go.
And
And
have a toolbox ready. If I am blocked, how can I get out of that block? And
yeah,
artists have their own way, writers have their own way. Sometimes it's just a simple redirect, but have your tools ready.
yeah. And remember, he's not in retrograde Leo very long. Right,
That's true.
because
That's true.
the bulk of the retrograde is going to occur in Cancer, which is really
Right.
the focus on home and family,
Yes.
emotional
Yes.
intelligence, that kind of thing, protection, nurturing, planting seeds and, watching them grow. And, there's a sort of nostalgic energy of Mars retrograde in Cancer,
Sure.
and it might bring up, things from the past or a
Great.
retro, like Yeah, I don't know how that will affect you and me, but I have little inklings of imaginations in my mind about what that could look like. So, anyway, the energy itself of Mars retrograde is a great time to give yourself a break.
Mm.
Break from feeling like you have to be all production all the time and instead be able to sit back and to, take time to reassess what your next steps will be. Londa's asking how it will affect a Leo, and Londa, it will affect you. It'll affect everybody because everybody has Leo somewhere. But because the sun for you is in Leo, and I believe you have a Leo rising sign. I don't know. Do you have a rising, I mean, a moon in Leo too? I can't remember. But it would certainly slow things down for you, in other words, giving you time to recreate, to reimagine, um, realign. You know, Mars is about strategy as well. So building a new strategy, just not taking action on that strategy yet. So it could be a very powerful time for everybody, but
So, so,
specifically in your Leo part of your chart.
so yeah. So everybody's going to look if they're Leo Sun, Leo Rising, Leo Moon, and fifth house. Is that what we're going to look for? Just to so everybody's super clear.
Yep, you could look at your fifth house, but look for where Leo is by house.
Sure.
So, like in my chart, Leo sits on the second house. In what she's saying, what Londa is saying is that it's going to be in her first house, but retrograding backward into her 12th house,
Mm.
which are rising Sag, isn't it? Or
You have a Sag rising. Yeah.
so yours, Gemini, would be on your seventh house,
Hmm.
eighth, ninth house, Leo,
Hmm.
right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And that means that you're looking at again about growth and expansion,
Mhm.
right? So you might have that slowed down for the moment, right?
Mm.
Maybe a time to revision
Yeah,
and
revision.
re-envision.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was actually thinking about Leo rising and a few people that I know who are Leo risings.
Yeah.
Thank
And everybody, like I said, has Leo somewhere. So
you.
whatever house it is in is the area of life where action will appear to have slowed down in some way, where it's time to reimagine, to think differently or to think before you act,
Yeah,
in case you are one who
good
likes
luck
to
with that.
act and then think. It
Right.
could be it could be interesting. So there is some uncertainty in all of this. Mars retrogrades only once every 26 months, so it's not like we're as comfortable with it as we are Mercury.
Mm.
And none of us like to have that feeling of our wings being clipped, and that's what Mars kind of brings to us, this time of, having to slow down and be, more perseverant in your energies, but it can be the blessing that you just didn't know you needed. And it could be the blessing in the end that really sets you up on a new direction when Mars turns back to forward motion in February, March, and in April when he changes, when he goes further beyond the retrograde point in Leo.
Phew.
Phew, lots of good stuff.
Yeah.
So, reflection and recalibration, seeking compassionate leadership, right? Looking for our leaders to have different qualities, up-leveled qualities, inner growth, all of these things. And don't be surprised if you get frustrated with Mars in
Oh, yeah.
retrograde.
Yeah.
It's
I
going
always
to happen,
the Mars in Cancer, all I ever see is steam. I just imagine,
right?
this big steam.
And that's the thing. And steam can burn or steam can be put to good use,
Mhm.
right? It's all up to us. So again, we get this idea, but I would at least wait for the full steam ahead until Mars is actually full steam ahead.
Mhm.
And that won't be until at least February 23rd. Well, he won't be at full steam ahead. He'll be moving in that direction.
Yeah.
Venus turns into Aquarius also on that day.
Yep.
And I kind of love her here. She has these unconventional sort of connections that happen, makes friends with different people and has different uh, views on relationships and how you can have relationships. There's some creative innovation that I'm looking forward to. Like, I don't know. I just like it. How
Us.
about you?
That's you and me and the whole energy almanac thing. It's gonna be perfect.
Right, because we've already revisioned it. This would be our first write up in that new direction,
Yeah.
which yeah, we're turning things upside down a bit, but that's okay because
Right side up, I think, actually.
right side up? I think you're right. Right side up. So the high expression of Venus in Aquarius means we are going to be in a position to transform relationships into a positive, new, empowered way, maybe, right? Looking at relationships differently. There's magnetic creativity here. Venus in Aquarius is paired now with Uranus, right? That's
Right. Yeah, that's true.
yeah, so, expect maybe the unexpected, unexpected, inspiration and ideas, um, maybe some, changes within your relationships, maybe putting it on a better footing, that
In
can
dating
also
inside of relationship, yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, the key takeaway is, that this is just a time for balancing things in terms of innovation, but remember, she falls right into the arms of Pluto as she moves into Aquarius because
Oh,
Pluto is at
right,
0
right.
Aquarius.
Mm,
And, when Venus aligns with Pluto, the energy is gonna be more intense,
mhm,
and it's adding depth, it's
mhm.
adding transformation to the game. So, in some ways, this might trigger power struggles, maybe, an over idealism that we need to, temper with some reality checks. We'll see, but, with Pluto, she's there just shortly with him. It's not a very long-lasting,
It's not a long
aspect.
relationship.
It's not a long relationship, so hopefully yeah, hopefully we move on and, it's positive.
Yeah,
It will be positive, I know it will be. Now, then the next day, December 7th,
Neptune.
like, we are out of breath almost, Tam,
I know.
right?
I
From
know. Bang, bang, bang.
this first week is something else, one a busy one for the record books almost in terms of, 2 different types of systems, where Neptune turns direct.
Yeah.
And, that will be from December 7th until, July 4th,
Mhm.
2025, and at that point, he will have moved into Aries. So between now and so he moves in there, I think it's March did I put that date? Yes, March 30th, Neptune enters Aries, and then he stations retrograde on July 4th at 2 degrees of Aries, and then moves backward into a short stop in Pisces once more, and then in 2026 ends up in Aries once more. So, but he stations direct in Pisces. And, you know, Neptune is the planet of dreams and illusions, spiritual growth.
Passion.
When he's been in retrograde motion, it's been, more things happening on the inner planes
Mm,
and the collective impact, I think, of Neptune turning direct could be things like awakening compassion
mhm.
and maybe awakening some form of spiritual growth within us, within each as individuals, but collectively as well. And during the retrograde, we may have felt disillusioned in some way or introspective. Maybe we were questioning our beliefs and why it is we, have believed the way we believed. And maybe our ideals felt unachievable, things like that. And now we can have maybe a different view of those things. Now, how can we, turn that imagination out into the outer world and start to create
It's
once
just more
more?
of an outward expression of our compassion, of our faith, our beliefs, of our dreaming, of our visioning, right?
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
excited about that. I'm kind of what degree? What degree will Neptune when he stations?
He stations at 27 degrees Pisces, 8 minutes.
Yeah,
So
so we're getting
27 degrees.
close to that final degree, right? Isn't there a building sort of happening?
He spent quite a bit of time this year in the 29th degree
Right,
and
this
then
is
retrograded and he's moved back. So he's going to revisit that 29th
right.
degree again. Um, and then hit the 0 degree. So we have a kind of Neptunian sandwich here, right?
Mhm.
Because we have this closure that's all kind of Piscean and borders changing and all of that. But it also gives us new energy, this injection of Aries, boldness and stepping forward and Neptune and Aries, that's it's going to
See,
be big.
It's again more steam, but a steam that I hope will move us forward in the right direction. I'm really actually very excited about Neptune and Aries. I really, really am.
Yeah,
Um,
Neptune and Aries, and then, of course, he's joined by Saturn in Aries at 0
yes,
degrees of Aries,
yeah,
and that happens 2025, 2026. So these 2, they are completely different creatures, right? Neptune and Saturn. So it'll
yeah,
be interesting. It'll be interesting for the world, and, we'll talk more about that in the Astrology of 2025 workshop that I'm doing December 19th at noon, recorded for those who cannot attend. Now, one of the other things, though, about Neptune turning direct is an enhanced intuitive ability, right?
right.
Connection. Um, with Neptune direct, your visionary self moves outward, where when he was in retrograde, it was moving inward, right? So you were maybe getting aha moments about, your own direction, about, what you needed and what have you. But now that he's direct, it'll be more, how do I direct that energy outward now?
Mm,
And how do I use my intuition to, play out in my business or in my personal life, in my finances, etc., all the way around the wheel. So kind of good energy.
absolutely.
The shadow is always there with us, and the shadow might be our running away, hiding, escapism, the typical, shadow themes of Neptune. And, we as long as we know about those things,
Yeah,
right, we
forewarned is
can
forearmed. Yeah.
exactly. So the high expression of Neptune in direct is inspired vision, right?
Mm,
Seeing the bigger, grander scheme, the bigger plan, compassionate action, really seeing from the heart. Spiritual evolution, moving forward in our spiral of consciousness. In the low expression, there's avoidance, there's naivety, right? Putting on the blinders, refusing to see what's right in front of us,
mhm.
but also emotional overload. I think sometimes Neptune can be an invisible factor in our anxiety load, uh,
Oh,
both collectively.
that. Sure.
Yeah. So, what do we do? Well, reignite your dreams,
Mm,
right? Go back to that point in time when you were excited about astrology or excited about traveling. Deepen your spiritual practices, right?
yes.
Always making that your grounding point, and then, oh yeah, stay grounded.
Right.
and
We talked about
and
that.
yeah, and embrace compassion. I mean, this is a time where spiritual your spiritual foundation is your saving grace.
Mhm,
So, but also know we might have problems with clarity during this period of time. Things get a little mucked up, like
mhm,
it's not clear.
mhm.
So that's why taking your time, being grounded is a really good idea. I was really proud of my daughter yesterday because I was telling you how she has this new job offer.
Yep.
And at the same time, she also has 2 or 3 other places that she wants to interview at. And what she said to me and to her sister is, "I think I'm going to go into meditation and see
Ooh,
if I can get some insight." Because
nice.
she was like, "Do I take the job that's right there on the table, or do I wait to see if these other ones come through because I'd really prefer to work at them?" And she
Wow.
chose to do that from an internal place, and I think that's wise for all of us
Mhm.
as we go forward. Is this the right thing? And if we're confused by that, the only real choice is to go into some form of grounding or meditation or journaling so that you can access your higher self.
Mm, beautiful.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Where are we time wise? We have 10 minutes. Yay. So, my next thing was about the winter solstice. Is there anything in between that you want to talk about?
We shouldn't skip the full moon in Gemini mid-month.
How did I skip the full moon in Gemini mid month?
Full moon
Did
on the 15th.
I didn't even pull the chart for the full moon.
We have a full moon in Gemini on the 15th, and let's see. Whoops. Oh, my glasses are up here. Hold on. Looks
Oh,
like
here it is. I had it.
yeah, like it's
So that happens at 23:53 Gemini and 23:53 Sagittarius,
mhm.
and the sun is conjunct the galactic center,
Ooh,
or within 4 degrees of it. And literally, I'm looking at Jupiter in retrograde also as conjunct that moon, even though it's a little bit more like 8 degrees
uh,
ish away.
see Jupiter. Oh, Jupiter. Oh,
Yeah,
yeah, that's right. It is.
yeah.
You're right. Mm.
Mhm. So I'm thinking this is a full moon of growth and of appropriate growth.
Mm.
Like, I wanna say you have to meter yourself in terms of how fast you're expanding. Mercury will have come out of retrograde at that point in time, but Mars is in retrograde full on at that time, so, we have to be very circumspect about what we do and how we take our next steps,
I,
and,
you gotta talk to the truth telling and that aspect. It's Gemini and Sag, both, whose perspectives, right? Their truth, their talk, their ability to socialize and be
there's
speak
a
their truth is so highly present.
I just realized there's a T-square here.
Ooh, hold on.
A
A
T-square, and it's pointed at Neptune. I just drew that by hand, which I suck at. But there we have it, right?
Oh, I do see it. Mhm,
We have the opposition between the sun and the moon,
mhm.
and they're pointed, the T-square points at Neptune. So I think that is, I think that's an interesting thing to understand about the full moon because there's now this element of confusion drawn in
Oh boy.
with Neptune, right? Neptune in Pisces still. Um, at this point at 27 degrees, so he's in that very ending sort of focus, and a T-square is always going to be a challenge, and the challenge is going to be able to see the truth,
Oh,
to
there
be
we
able
go. There we go.
through
The
through
truth.
the feed of information, what is the real truth?
Is it also could it
Mm.
also touch on beliefs again?
Yeah, oh yeah, definitely, because
Questioning what should I believe? What do I believe?
what is truth, what
What
is
is
not
true?
truth?
Yeah, yeah.
And, then I also think about information overload
Yes,
because both Sagittarius and Gemini are, you know,
yes,
in
totally.
yeah,
Oh
and with Jupiter and Gemini just kind of expanding that,
my god.
kind of
I
exaggerating that whole thing.
I have a dear friend who's a Sag, and I'm always saying, "Oh my god, turn off your fire hose. I can't take it all, the information."
I feel like my family sometimes feels like that about me with Gemini sun. Oh god. There's just so much information right now, right, that we're taking in, and literally people can only take in I wanna say we have this a thing called this flicker frequency. Have you ever heard that term?
Yeah,
And I wanna say it's like 24 frames per second or something like that, and
yeah.
when you have so many things going on and so much information coming in, and we can't get beyond that flicker
Your
frequency.
brain literally does shut down, actually. When I
Yeah.
was studying neuroscience 10 years ago, I can't really remember. It's like 120 bits of information per minute you can remember, and then your brain sorts it into one of 7 natural categories in your brain. So if it's not in one of those 7 categories, it goes out the back door and you're done.
Yeah, so, on in a way, I feel like the full moon here may be, a doorway to a lot of stuff happening, a lot of information coming in. And what can we do about that? Well, at some point, you gotta turn off your phone, or you gotta turn off the TV, or you gotta just,
Walk
get
away.
outside in nature. Sagittarius grounds through nature. It is a very nature and rhythmic sort of energy. So that's one, coping strategy is to make sure you're outdoors, that you're doing things that are, not sitting at your computer or on your phone. Um, so there's that. But there's also a sextile to Chiron during that full moon, which I always think of that as a really open healing path,
Mhm.
bringing us the healing opportunity. It's up to us whether we heal or not, right?
Always.
Yeah, it's ours. There is a semi-sextile, which is just a 30-degree relationship, and it stresses the need for cooperation, and that's between the moon and Uranus, still retrograde in Taurus.
Taurus.
So I'm wondering if that isn't some kind of economic news, some kind of uh, need for us to balance somewhat some things maybe between inflation and banking type issues, the dollar, cryptocurrencies.
Cryptocurrency, yeah. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a lot
trying to,
going on right now. Yeah.
yeah. And that the sun in that if the moon is in a semi-sextile, then the sun is in an inconjunct. So that pair of energies is kind of difficult. So just it might not be all rosy during that period of time in the outer world. Inwardly, though, for us, I think it could be a really good time to settle into. I mean, we're in December, mid-December. It might be a really good time to strategically take a look at how you're positioned financially with
Mm,
your budgets, with
mm,
your plans for your future, without, having to feel like you have to make this 10-year plan, but being able to take some, of the signs that you're seeing out there in the world and plan for, what to do as you move forward, as things begin to move forward
make your
after
adjustments. Yeah.
yeah. So, yeah, what do you want to adjust? I don't think this is a bad full moon. I just feel like there's a lot of light shining on some things that maybe have been exaggerated, overplayed, um, and gives us an opportunity to recenter, come back to
Through
the
the month,
middle.
recentering. I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
You
So,
mentioned solstice next. I have a Jupiter square Saturn. No? Am I right?
at the solstice or what?
Well, yeah, right then.
Yes, there is it is, and that is the first square of the two planets since their conjunction back in December of 2020. So it is what we would call a waxing square, I think they call it, where we begin to really see the hard work that's going to be ahead of us in bringing about Aquarian ideals,
Mm.
because that's what the template was set then
Mhm,
for this idea of Aquarius. It was zero Aquarius.
mhm.
We have Pluto now sitting at zero Aquarius, so that point is triggered.
Right. Ooh.
And the square says, okay, how are we going to rise up and meet the challenges, right? How are we going to um, try to even out a playing field? How are we going to, deal with marginalized people? And how are we going to be innovative and creative and set ourselves up for a positive future? Um, I'm just a little concerned about that though, because there's so much about Pluto moving into a new sign that like bares its teeth first, and
Sure.
we see all the ugly part of what could happen. So that then over the course of the transit, we can work out the kinks of that new system. So in a way, that first square is enlightening. Let's put it that way,
Okay.
and could produce, I think, possibly new solutions to old problems. Right?
Well,
That would be the high side.
well, yeah, but we're talking about Jupiter in Gemini,
Mhm,
retrograde,
mhm,
Saturn in Pisces,
mhm.
Saturn direct. Aren't
Yes, Saturn is direct.
so are we talking about having spiritual discipline and asking questions? Is that a good way to look at this transit?
Yeah, there's that in that as well. That's the actual transit
Yeah,
information. I was really looking at the cyclical thing
I know.
here
Yeah,
because
I know you work it.
in the round of uh, what was triggered at Jupiter's conjunction to Saturn in Aquarius. So now maybe if we look at, Jupiter's in Gemini, again, we get back to truth, we get back to information, we get back to the flow of communication, we get to look at, all of these different ways in which communication, AI, the internet, news, all of the ways that we communicate get brought up and maybe brought into boundaries.
Mm,
Saturn in Pisces is, trying to attempting to bring boundaries to what is boundaryless.
mhm.
So, and also untying boundaries that are no longer appropriate. So it is interesting to think of those two signs.
Saturn, I always feel like in is always like restricting. I feel like I feel like bringing it in. When I think of Saturn, I'm like, ooh, the tightening. That's how I like pressure.
Yeah. Well, Saturn is a constrictor,
Yeah,
right? And Jupiter is an amplifier. So
amplifiers.
we have these two powers that are moving in opposite
Right.
directions. Yeah. So it amplifies, this possibility of growth in information and growth in technology and what have you. Saturn putting a little bit of the brakes on that and saying, yeah, but for one thing, in Pisces, it would be looking at it from the more practical, because Pisces isn't very practical. It's
Right,
idealistic.
right, right.
So how do we bring some practicality into idealism?
Yeah.
That's a tough one, right? Because those seem
Totally.
anti. But I've also taken on a new sort of definition of Saturn's job, and Saturn can actually act as the cauldron, if you will, in that all of the magic is held, right? If you didn't have a container for Saturn, like Saturn, you wouldn't have any ability to grow and expand into Jupiter things.
Mhm.
So we have to have, we have to have the dream, we have to have the optimism, the expansion, but we also have to have the container in which that can be supported,
Mm,
right? So if we are going to grow technologically, which seems to be, this theme that we're seeing in the world, then what are the rules of that road?
right.
What's the container with which we're going to move ahead in that way?
Yeah.
And of course, that's not going to get solved in one connection of these two planets like this. It's going to,
Right.
play out over time. But it's a good theme. It's a
Yep.
good theme for us to be looking at. Um,
Yeah,
was
we're
that
there. Time-wise, we're there. Do you want to touch on the new moon?
Yeah, 2 new moons this month. If you're on the East Coast of the US and further east, you get 2 new moons. For me, it's gonna be November 30th and then on December 30th, I believe it is.
Mhm.
And, that new moon is,
All
a pretty
business.
nice one. It's a Capricorn new moon.
Yeah, nice, solid, grounding, all business kind of new moon. I love it. Perfect for
Mhm.
planning. People for who want to put a structure into
Mhm.
the good time for setting intentions in that way.
Yeah. I've also rewritten Capricorn into Capricornia because she is a feminine sign. And
Right.
in which case, I also had to rewrite Saturn because Saturn in Capricorn is feminine
Mhm.
and takes on feminine qualities. So, what we have is two big opportunities now. What we have is the ability with the scythe, right?
Mhm.
Capricorn, Saturn, scythe,
Yep.
trimming out, reducing, letting go, whatever, isn't working. But in the new picture of Capricornia, she's also holding the
Mhm.
vessel of birth, the
Mhm.
vessel of potential, of
Yep.
ideas yet to be born, and there's a lot of light coming out of that vessel.
Mm.
And some of my followers have already seen that new picture and that whole rewrite of Capricorn energy. But for all of you guys here this morning to think about, yes, there is, the stories of Capricorn have been all masculine, which isn't fair considering it's a feminine sign. So, how can we build and grow and strategize and be business oriented, but in a feminine, receptive, intuitive, wise way? So, we'll have to leave it there because we're already at 9 something here.
Awesome. I mean, boy, we need longer shows if we're going to get through these. Oh,
Especially when we have a month like December. I mean, it just so
oh
happens
my
that
gosh.
this is, and
January show. So Pam is asking about it. That's going to be, what did we decide? The 30th.
30th.
Yeah, December 30th. We're
Yeah.
going to do the next show. For everybody who's listening and who is interested, you may or may not know, one of the things that I teach is emotional freedom technique. And I haven't done this in a really long time, but if you've always wanted to learn EFT tapping, I am doing a training on December 10th. If you need information about that, tag me in a comment and I will get you a link, and there I can share with you all the science behind EFT tapping, how to do it, why to do it. And
Do you know the link? Because you could put that in the comments here too.
oh yeah, I do know the link. I'll drop it
Yeah,
in.
yeah. So put it there and then everybody can see it at least, both on Facebook and YouTube. And don't forget to get your almanac,
Don't
right?
forget to get your almanac.
It is now is the time. Do we
Yep.
still have coil bounds available?
We have probably about 30 left.
Woo. If you want a coil bound, hit Tam up at choose big change,
.com.
right? Tam at choosebigchange.com.
Yes.
and talk to her about getting that. The coil bound is, the one that allows us to, whoa,
Lay it
lay
flat.
it down flat,
If you're
right?
ordering from Amazon, you're going to get a paperback, which is still beautiful, but
Yes,
not as easy for writing.
correct. So,
So, yes.
all right. And
Janet has her annual overview December 19th. I am also hosting my annual overview on December 19th. So depending on which format you prefer, if you like a really, 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 really deep dive, that's Janet and her work. If you really prefer like a simpler format, that's my skill set. So both of us are providing our classes on December 19th.
that's so funny. I didn't know that. Um, as well, happy Thanksgiving
Happy
to all of
Thanksgiving
you.
to everyone. Here we go into
Yeah.
the holiday season. I hope
Mm.
I hope it's magical for everyone.
Yeah, so much gratitude to all of you as listeners, and Tam, my gratitude to you for being my partner in this show monthly.
Ah,
It's been a fabulous year so far. Let's see how we can close this one out and open up to a whole new systems of calendars next year.
let's end it on a high note. Have a wonderful month, everybody. See you in December.
Bye for now.